The views and opinions expressed on this station do not reflect the owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Thursday, the 28th day of January, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, and Lindo's. I'm Jamel Hartman, along with Carla Zool. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you're watching online, share the link. If you're on Facebook, start a watch party. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. Just get the conversation out there to your network. And don't forget to like and engage with us. A good one today as we focus on the case of former Premier of Bermuda, the Honorable Dr. Ewart Brown. The Daily Play is a name that place, and we something tells me Carla's gonna have a challenge with that question. Why? Because history has shown geography probably was not her best subject. Am I wrong?
You are not lying.
I think I stumped you with this one. But let's just say, no, I'm not going, because that'll give it away. Let's just say it's going to be a challenge. Happy Thursday to everyone. Happy Thursday to everyone. A lot to talk about. 20 minutes past the hour, we'll be discussing the case of the Honorable former Premier Ewart Brown. But before we get there are quite a few things I have on my docket this morning, Carla, and I forgot to mention it on Monday. But Jackie had been talking to us last weekend about the movie American Skin, right? And she was texting us about it. So I actually watched it on Sunday. And I don't know if anyone's seen the movie, but put it this way here. It was, I can see people saying it was deep and it's got me angry. I pretty much feel like it didn't change my mind about anything. And here's where I go with this. Just to give those who don't know, the film American Skin, I think it's a Spike Lee production, written and directed by is it Nate Parker? He stars in it as well. Basically, he gets stopped by the police with his son in the car. He takes his son, the police ask him to get out of the car because his insurance card that he showed his insurance was expired, even though he had insurance. His son pulls out his phone to record. The other officer asked the son to put his phone away and get out of the car. The officer knew he didn't have a gun, it was a phone, but because he didn't, basically shot him. He was dead.
How old was his son? Like teenager?
15, I think. 15.
Okay. No, I was just wondering for context.
And Nate Parker was in the movie, his character, he was a military vet. He had returned to the U.S. and he was working as a custodian at a school so that his son can get into that school, which was known as a white institution. And his son was a brainiac and he basically knew the laws. And what his father tried to tell him is, son, those laws don't apply to you. You're black, right? And his son, he was arguing with his father. No, Dad, this is the law. And because his son was pretty much surrounded by white students and so on, he didn't quite understand that, no, the laws do not apply to black people. And obviously we saw a few weeks ago at the Capitol of the US, people making those arguments, different laws for different folks, right? And so, long story short, Nate Parker, some college student wanted to do a documentary on his son's case and so on. What he did is he pretty much took the people who were doing the documentary, and they didn't know what they were getting into. He went and got the police chief. Well, I missed a part. The police, tactically, what they do is when violence starts breaking out because there were no charges filed against the officer, they use the mother of the child and put it on the news to ask people to stop the violence. This isn't honoring my son. And so the mother and father weren't together anymore, but they were still, co-parenting. And his family were like, no, this is what they do. This is that play tactic, right? Long story short, well, I can't make anything short. But he went on to take over the police station and whatever they call it, the police complex, and pretty much put the officer who murdered his son on trial. And the jury was made up of people, including prisoners that were locked up in the jail at the time. And they found him guilty. I'll leave it at that because I pretty much gave most of it away, but I don't want to give the final part away. But, the movie is a lot of people's reality. And the reality is that this young boy, though he went to a white institution and, learned about certain things, how people say sometimes we have to unlearn what we've been taught to truly be educated. I think that's one of those cases. We go to these institutions, we go to these schools, we learn everything. I recently said, I might have said to you yesterday, I said, I don't look at, like, we look, someone on Twitter said a couple months ago, there are so many people that have started very successful businesses. There are so many people who have passed insurance classes and gotten crazy jobs in the insurance sector. There are people who have, just various accomplishments. And this is no hate on lawyers, but they said, why is it every time someone passes the bar in Bermuda, it's this big news story? I said, that's interesting because I never even looked at it like that, right? And then it just makes you, it goes back to the institution. And I bring this up because I see people on Twitter going off about Glenn Jones and talking about, a Black Bermudian this, Black Bermudian that. Look, let me say this and I'll be clear. I want Black people to be successful. I do. But we have to unlearn these things about putting a Black face. I often say that diversity and inclusion, I'm not a fan of the whole idea of it for various reasons. The idea shouldn't just be put Black faces in spaces. No, it's a conscious individual that needs to be in these spaces. So if you have someone who can't even relate to the Black experience, they don't understand, what all they've been taught, that it doesn't apply to them. It's a big problem.
As you know, I went to Work Academy, the public school, and I say the public school for a reason, because when I went, it was 60% Black. And going back to the movie, first of all, I didn't watch it. The preview alone was traumatizing to me as a mother of a teenage boy and one coming up behind him, combined with shootings, just couldn't watch it. But attending Work Academy in the 80s, I think my mom thought it was the best thing for me. And I look back and I think it was one of the mistakes that we made, because she asked me after 1 year, did I want to transfer? And I said, no, I loved it. And I listened to some of you guys who went to Berkeley and stuff, and I really feel like I missed out. And I also feel that in some degrees, it skewed my perception of reality, the racial reality in Bermuda and around the world, because we grew up in a kumbaya environment. So it wasn't until I became a professional adult that I realized that those same rules that may have worked for some of my friends didn't apply to me. And I'm talking about opportunity, access to opportunity. And I'm an educated Black woman. And I one of my good friends, the white guy, he inboxed me and he goes, Carla, you've changed. Did Work Academy do something to us? And I said, yeah, it didn't tell us the truth about how the world really works. And we had a conversation about that because his white privilege was different than my Black reality. But Work Academy didn't give that to me. So that's the one regret I have about, and now I understand why I should have went to Berkeley. I loved work, but
you know what? Here's the thing where I agree with you, but not wholeheartedly. I don't think going to Berkeley, some people used to always say, I'm surprised you didn't go to a historically Black college the way you think, right? And then I met a friend, a Morehouse graduate, went to a historically black, and he said, I'm actually glad you didn't because you have seemed radical enough. And I'm like, I'm not radical, right? But the point he's making is, and the point I'm going to make to you is, I don't necessarily think going to Berkeley would be any different than Warwick Academy. I'm going to tell you why. Because when I say unlearn all we've been taught, black institutions are still teaching white laws and stuff, but they're still teaching the same thing. You're just surrounded by more people in terms of educators and pupils that look like yourself. But the curriculum and stuff's the same stuff. It's like it's legit the same. I think that's where we kind of get confused. We think that even private school versus public school is different. No, the aim is still the same. The aim is to tell us about these laws and these rules. It's the same in that respect. You're still learning 1 + 1. You're still reading the same comprehension books. That's it. I went to Northlands. I went to Cedar Bridge. They're just as guilty in this. They're just as complicit. You know how I can prove they're all complicit? Because it wasn't until 2018 that conscription ended. I have to use that because that was a racist white law. Ooh, that was a racist white law that black people were made to believe was something that we should aim to put our boys in for discipline. So I don't think there's a big difference between black institutions and white institutions if that's the same. And you want to use I'm going to say Junior Birchwood, right? He used to speak of this often. And Mr. Luby, you make a great point. Like Berkeley does not teach anything any different. It's all the same education. It really is. Now, I'm going to say this here. Northlands, when I went, it was a lot of Portuguese people there, right? So it was a bit diverse until like people after me started coming. You did see more black people coming. Again, education, same thing. Kathy Brumby makes another good point. Schools are meant to knock every bit of independence out of children, including WA. Go ahead, Carla.
Not so much the education, but I mean more of the experience in the sense of I never realized that being black, and people may be like what I'm about to say, but I didn't realize that your skin color mattered until I stepped foot at University of Georgia in 1995. And I had never been a minority. I had never realized that like real hand experience. I worked in the cafeteria. They had a rule. Whoever got first, you got to choose. Most people chose the tables, right? You just wipe the tables. I would get there first and I would still end up in that disgusting thing that looks like a pig's trough where they dump the food. And I was like, what? Or people calling you Missy. It was just different things. And I just feel if I had gone to Berkeley, I may have had a deeper perspective of what my skin color meant. Gotcha. So I was jolted, and I was 21 when I went.
You would have look. You would have had more school pride. I don't know if you would have been saying Gold House or Greenhouse, but you would have had more school pride. That's for sure.
Don't get me wrong. I love Warwick Academy, but I realized that in certain ways, socially, it did me an injustice.
I'm going to be very honest, and this is not against the educators I had, because I had some phenomenal people that they tried their best with me. I just was not a good student, right? So it's not all on them, but I have no good memories or experiences of education in Bermuda because to me, it was always a one size fits all. I'm a different learner from other people. It wasn't until I got to college when, you realize, hey, you can go do this on your own. You can do things you love. And, certain professors see something in you and they're like, yo, I want to come do this. You're going to be great at this. I didn't get that from public education in Bermuda. I'm not going to sit here and say public education in Bermuda failed me. I'm not going to say my parents, they did everything possible. Tried to, I'm glad we're going to have her on. The Honorable Nalitha Butterfield last week. She had her, at her home, part of her home was turned into a care learning center. So I did those kind of things. I've always done something to help me out. But I say that because I did not have a good experience educational wise in Bermuda. And what I'm not going to do is sit here and say it was the education system or the teachers of school. It just, to me, there probably were not opportunities available then to handle what students like myself needed. I don't know if things have changed. I'm not that close to the situation. Let's go through some comments. Don't forget, we will be talking about the Honorable Dr. Ewart Brown's case going in depth. Carla was in court last week. No, it wasn't for her, folks. It wasn't for her. She went to witness Dr. Brown. I think we had Eugene Dean and the young lady. What was her name? The young lady.
Denise Revere.
Denise Revere from Bermuda Clean Hair Act when we got the note. And so Carla had to rush to court. So we're going to talk about that in depth. And I'll speak to you about that after this. Nikki Michelle, Carla.
I think the one big difference in historically Black colleges versus traditional college is that you are not in a hostile-based environment. Virginia State University here. Whoop, whoop. And Nikki went to work academy with me. So you're lucky. I never had that.
I do wish. I mean, I remember Dr. Kywan Brown one Thanksgiving. I was in school in Alabama, and he was at Morris Brown. And I went there for the Turkey Day football classic against 1 o'clock Atlanta. And I was just like, man, and this is when Drumline was out, right? And I was just like, am I missing out on something? You know what I'm saying? Like, I really always felt like I missed out on a real Black college experience.
Me too.
It's Carla, we're such a sad bunch. I'm David, Carla.
Not all schools taught about conscription. However, most times it was swept under the larger carpet of colonialism. And so Blacks weren't so much as taught to follow the crowd as we believed it.
Tanika Eve says, agreed, Kathy, it's the beginning of developing the herd mentality and not free thinkers. We have some Barclay pride in the house, gold house out there. Here's a fight. Greenhouse. Look at that. Dr. Seaman says, had to send youngest to work academy. A horrible feeling for me. Experienced interesting moments. Asked her each year. Finally, she was ready to go to Barclay. Dijon Simmons says, do you remember the imagination you had as a child? Do you still have it? If not, why not? This is what I'm talking about. And this is why, say what you want. I'll just share. No, I'm not sharing my bias. You all don't need to know my business say that. But no, I appreciate the Montessori vibe. I really do. I'm a big fan of the Montessori vibe. And I've heard people say, oh, I don't like it because they don't. No, I love it. I think you should put children where they are, where they like to be and where their strengths are. If I would have gotten into what I was interested in, and as Dijon saying, where my imagination took me at a young age, I would actually probably be better. I probably won't be as annoying to you all on a daily basis. Who knows? Tanika Goldhouse, I saw that face, Carla. Nikki Michelle says the school system was never set up for any of us. This is my point. It was never meant to teach us all how to act and behave and not think in a certain way. Jamel, it wasn't that you were a bad student. I was a good student at work academy, and I still hated it and long for something more. School as it is now is not meant to produce independent thinkers. And thank you for saying that, Nikki. Let me clarify the bad student. When I say bad student, I was a bad student based on what this system is.
No, right.
That's what I mean. Like I'm a non-traditional learner, right? I mean, everything I do is pretty much non-traditional. That's why you will always find trouble with me. I want to go back to David Michael Wilson. He said not all schools taught about conscription. I don't remember one. Well,
I was going to say I never was taught about conscription.
About conscription, it wasn't meant to be taught. Conscription was an extension of school, like maintain these young Negroes. Let's just call it what it is. So they won't teach you the truth, the ins and outs of something like that. Here's someone making us jealous. Look at this. Look, my HBCU experience is definitely a vibe. Like whatever, player, whatever. Rub it in, like, right? Morgan House, is that work academy?
Yeah, I was in Robinson, the Blue House, Robertson, yes, and house captain, I think. Mm-hmm.
So is it bad that I don't even remember houses from Cedar Bridge or Northlands or I just don't remember. It was no. So in fairness, I was in the first graduating class of Cedar Bridge, so there was no culture at the time, right? Northlands, again, I just don't remember anything about it. I mean, yeah. Lamel Woods says, I think the unconscious bias is perpetrated and complicit in public and private schools. That's my point, brother Lamel. The brainwashing has become subliminal and normal. In the end, schools don't build knowledge of self. They are to produce conformists. And that's where my challenges were. And I think, yeah, that well said. I can't add anything to that. Let's go do two more comments. We got to get to the news, and then we'll be back. We're going to be talking about Dr. the Honorable Ewart Brown, Carla, Dr. Seaman.
I have never let any system control me. I observe and locate the controller and decide what I will do.
All right. Robert Durham says, my son attended work academy for 7 years, and a lot of teachers seem to cater to white students when particular situations were brought to the attention of the headmaster based on the school expected. I was told if it bothered me that much, I can move my son to another school.
It's a business.
School is a business. Danica Butterfield, Delta Sigma Omega. So I'm thinking these were his school colors at Northland, right? Honestly, I
Thanks for translating for him.
I legit had no idea. I could not remember that. Amanda Kelly, some things never changed. The reason I do not deal with them at all. Let's go. Michelle White says Rhodes at work, 1978, sent son to Summersfield, best decision. That's that Montessori vibe. There we go. Last comment. This is my sister. I love Montessori. My daughter has been in Montessori program from the age of 3. I find that when blacks find out, they scold me for sending my child out to white school. It's sad because I sent her there because I felt the program was appropriate for her style of learning, but many blacks see it as I don't think public school is good enough for her. One thing I'll say this about Montessori is a different vibe to me, Carla. It's very different. I support it because when I think about it, it's setting that child up to be independent. I know people scold people for sending their children to private school, but at the end of the day, I don't have children, right? And I tell people all the time, do what you feel is in the best interest of your child, not Jamel, not Carla. I am not one person that's going to sit back in my chair, as Dunkley calls it, armchair quarterback, and tell you how to coach your family. No, 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 no. I don't care if I did have children and was successful in one way. Every child is different. And it's like I always say, if you are the boss at an organization, you cannot treat everyone the same. We do this show. It's Carla, myself, and Jackie. I cannot treat Jackie and Carla the same. Carla has been doing this much longer. Jackie hasn't. So it's all about treating people fairly. With that said, Carla, we are behind time. We have a lot to talk about with the Honorable Dr. Ewart Brown. Folks, you want to listen to this conversation. You heard my comments last week about Dr. Brown. I have been in touch with Dr. Brown. I have a lot to say. Carlos has a lot to say. And we're going to take a very objective, unbiased view of the charges against the Honorable Dr. Ewart Brown. Stick with us. Don't go anywhere.
The Minister of Social Development and Seniors, Tanae Furbert, recently attended the virtual 4th meeting of the presiding officers of the Regional Conference on Social Development in Latin America and the Caribbean. Minister Furbert saying, as our ministry strives to be the eyes and ears for solutions to social issues, we are grateful for the valuable insight this meeting provided on strategies for social development. With the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on poverty and inequality in the region, this meeting offered an opportunity for country representatives to exchange ideas and formulate strategies for growth. The World Gazette reporting that Donna Rader is determined to give Carifta Game hopefuls who are yet to qualify every opportunity possible to seal their spot for the rescheduled event this summer. An agreement was reached last week by the North American, Central American, and Caribbean Athletics Association to move the games originally scheduled for April 2nd through 5th to July 2nd through 4th. While athletes who qualified for the 2020 games will not have to qualify again in the same age group, the delay has reopened the opportunity for others to book their place, with a new qualifying deadline set for 3 weeks before the championships for those trying to meet the standards. Despite the island still being in the midst of the pandemic, with restrictions in place for sports to return to its previous capacity, Mrs. Rayner, president of the Bermuda National Athletics Association and head of the local organizing committee, remains confident that qualifying meets will be hosted, albeit with possible tweaks to previous formats. Meanwhile, BBC's reporting a free anthology of books by Black British authors is to be provided to every primary school in England. Reading Charity Book Trust said the initiative was part of a drive to increase the diversity of voices in children's literature. The collection, called Happy Here, is aimed at children aged 7 and older and will be published on August the 5th. It will feature writers including Yomi Sadeh, Claire Weiss, Dean Atta, Patrice Lawrence, and Sharna Jackson. The project is a collaboration between Book Trust, Publisher Knights of, and Charity Center for Literacy in Primary Education. January 28th is Global Community Engagement Day. Community engagement is the process of working collaboratively with community groups to address issues that impact the well-being of those groups. While the term may seem obscure, community engagement is a concept that is part of every person's life. Every job that you have had has something to do for your community, and working with people to solve problems within the community is a daily activity for those who work in high-end companies and government organizations. Global Community Engagement Day is all about giving appreciation to those people. Turning to weather, the temperature in Bermuda is expected to reach a high of 70. Las Vegas, Nevada will see a high of 56, and Nottingham, UK will see a high of 52. Don't forget to tune into the full100radio.com tonight for Nighttime Jams featuring some of your favorite romantic classics. That's your Daily Hour news break.
All right. Thanks for that, Carla. We'll be right back. Stick with us. We're discussing the case of Dr. the Honorable former Premier Ewart Brown.
Good day. Medical House Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare. Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products.
Anything that we ask them to do, they come through.
These same professional quality products are available to you for home healthcare.
If we can use them, we definitely do so.
Medical House is best known for its uniforms and footwear. It also has restaurant uniforms that stand up to even the toughest shifts. If you're on your feet all day, Medical House has comfortable and stylish shoes that are also durable and easy to clean. Everyone needs some help cleaning up, and Medical House has got it. Leading-edge janitorial, facility, and maintenance supplies are all here. Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there's private parking right outside the door. Call or visit Medical House today.
This month, we're featuring a range of infant and baby care products from Hello Bello. The company started up by a husband and wife team who were inspired to meet the challenges arising from the often surprising, not to mention messy, experiences that came with the territory known as parenting. The couple behind Hello Bello know that being a parent is uniquely demanding, and their mission is to bring you premium products at gentle prices. Try Hello Bello Apple Blossom Baby Lotion, Lavender Shampoo and Body Wash, Flushable Wipes, Diaper Rash Cream, Lavender Bubble Bath, and more. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
All right. Welcome back to the big show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindo's, and our friends over at Channel 82, where you can also watch this and many other locally produced shows if you have One Communications. She's Carla Zool. I'm Jamel Hartman. Now, today we're going to discuss the case of former Premier of Bermuda, the Honorable Dr. Ewart Brown. With Dr. Brown, there's no in between. People either really love him or really hate him. From a personal perspective, many would say I have every reason to be on the side of hate with Dr. Brown for the way he handled conscription, and I'd probably agree. However, as a host of this show, I feel the need to have the responsibility or take responsibility and dialogue and engage about this situation, not based on my personal feelings, but the actual case. If we all agree that one deserves a fair trial to be judged by their peers, then it would do us well to look at this case objectively and not the person himself. So that said, Carla, let's start with the court last week. Obviously, you were present virtually in the courts. What was the vibe like with Dr. Brown and his lawyer? What was the what was it like when you entered?
Dr. Brown was just quiet. He wasn't. I've been to hundreds of court sessions, right? He didn't seem timid or afraid or angry. He showed no emotion. He didn't have an attitude. He was just there, you know. His lawyer did literally all of the speaking, and he just represented. I mean, if anyone felt, in my opinion, that there was any emotion in it in any sort of negative way, I think they're making it up, because he was just present.
Mm-hmm. So let's go over some of the charges. So those who don't know, Dr. Brown was charged with 13 counts of corruption. And, you know, the investigation has been going on for years. Now, according to the Royal Gazette, who was also present with Carla, Cindy Clark, the director of public prosecution, said the 13 charges included 5 related to agreements with the Leahy Clinic, through which he allegedly received 4.01 million in monthly payments between 2001 and 2010. Before we go any further, let me just give this disclaimer. Carla, at least I don't think Carla, nor myself are lawyers. And so what we discussed today, please don't take as legal advice. Go home, argue with your spouse or a family member, punch somebody or get punched in the mouth for arguing for or against Dr. Brown. We're not here to do that. We're legit here to have a conversation, an objective one. Because as I stated just now, with Dr. Brown, there's literally no in between. People just seem to, and I feel this is important to discuss because last week when Carla broke the story that Dr. Brown was charged, I observed the responses to it. And since we're on race this morning, there are a lot of Black people who do not like Dr. Brown. There are, for various reasons. But it was interesting to see the responses from non-Black people. As if surprised, of course he's guilty, or this and that. And I said to Carla, I find it interesting as to who is commenting and what they're saying about this. People you've never seen comment about politics. All of a sudden, it's Dr. Brown and these charges. And so what I don't want to do, again, I may have my issues with Dr. Brown, deep-rooted issues. There was a voice note being circulated last week where Dr. Brown's talking about colonialism. Well, if I were to make this about me, Dr. Brown, during his tenure as premier, fought against myself and 13 other Black men to maintain the most colonial thing about Bermuda, which is conscription into the Royal Bermuda Regiment. So I can't take Dr. Brown seriously when he's talking like that, right? Can I? Surely I can't. No, I can't. Because just because he was wrong then doesn't mean he's not right now. And that's where we have to be objective when we're having these conversations. Remove the individual. So Carla, let's go through the charges. Do you have them ready? Let's just explain to people what the charges are.
So the first one, between January 1st and December 31st, 2001, while the holder of public office as a government minister corruptly asked and agreed to receive a benefit, namely fees to be paid in monthly installments for himself on account of services provided or to be provided to him to Leahy Clinic, Inc. and Leahy Clinic Hospital over the years 2001, 2002, 2003. And then that charge is repeated four times, four times, but the dates are, like I said, 2001, 2002, 2003, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I'm just summarizing for time. And then 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it just gives various dates between that window.
Again, neither of us are lawyers. If there's a lawyer in the audience that can assist with this. So basically, the only thing he would have done wrong here was done this while he held public office, because this is normal, isn't it? Wouldn't this be considered normal in public life? I mean, private life, like to work with if you are a doctor, right? If you're a doctor and you have a relationship with a hospital and you see people that are sick and probably can't get the treatment where you are, you have a relationship, you work with that hospital to get them better treatment. And there are a lot of Bermudians who don't like Dr. Brown that have benefited from the Leahy relationship. So my question is, I guess, would it not, if the only thing he did wrong would be if public officials can't make those agreements, or if they're proven that he used his position in public office to do that? Help me out. I just don't see what, if I'm looking at this objectively, unless the law says a public official can't be involved in those agreements, okay, maybe then he's guilty. But if the law doesn't say that, I don't necessarily see the problem, because proving that he benefited from being a public official, that would be pretty hard. Yeah.
Well, prove me wrong, but I don't know if that's a law, because then it wouldn't take 10 years to bring the charges. And this is just me thinking as a layperson. If it was outright illegal and that cut and dry, then he should have been charged sooner. It wouldn't take 10, 11 years to find these charges. That's just my summation on face. Shall I continue?
Please continue. Sorry.
No, I wasn't around for once. I like this.
I'm a layperson. I'm really trying to understand. That's why I felt the need to have this discussion, because a lot of people just saw corruption charges. They don't exactly know what it is, and we're jumping to conclusions, myself included. And it's like, hold up, what is illegal about this? But go ahead.
So charge 5 on and about May 11, 2007, being the holder of a public office as premier, corruptly obtained a benefit, namely a donation of $50,000 from Global Hue Inc. to the benefit of the PLP on account of the promotion of the interests of Global Hue Inc.
So
does that tie in Bowden?
Pardon?
Would this tie into the David Bowden allegations?
I don't think so, because Global Hue, from my understanding, is the organization that worked for Bermuda Tourism. They were the agency, if I'm not mistaken. So this here seems like it didn't benefit Dr. Brown, but the Progressive Labor Party, the political party. So it doesn't seem like direct.
So maybe because he was the leader, when a lawsuit goes to the police, whoever has to take responsibility. So maybe that's what it is.
Okay, let's go to some comments. Nikki Michelle says, I certainly assume kickbacks are standard for creating relationships and clients bring into a certain business. It's called capitalism. We have an entire world built up. Well, these are my questions, Nikki, and this is why I'm confused, right? Again, take Dr. Brown out of it. I'm literally trying to understand the charges. Now, we're not the court. We're not we don't have all the evidence. We just have what the charges are that are presented. So obviously more may come out, which is why I say, let the process do what it does, right? But this just seems like simple capitalism. Charles H. Jeffers too says, are public officials required to disclose such interest? Well, there is a website. I don't have the actual URL right now, folks, but the URL, you can go to and see what public officials, like politicians, like where they have to declare their interest. Now, Charles, that's a good question. And now, if he didn't declare his interest, then we could, that probably could be something there. Sean Smith, reread the charges again because it sounds quid pro quo. Carla, you want to just read not quickly the first couple?
Right, I'll just, because they're the same besides the dates. So between January 1st, I'll recharge one. Between January 1st, 2001 and December 31st, 2001, while under the public office as a government minister, corruptly asked and agreed to receive a benefit, namely fees to be paid in monthly installments for himself on account of services provided or to be provided by him to Leahy Clinic Inc. and Leahy Clinic Hospital Inc. over the years of 2001, 2002, and 2003. So what I'm now, because I've slowed down and read it again, it's basically saying it's alleges almost like he's robbing his own company. I don't know if anyone else sees it as being interpreted that way, because it's saying that his Bermuda Healthcare Services provided So it sounds like it's saying that his company may have provided the services, but he pocketed the money. That's how I interpret that, but I'm not a lawyer. So
Talent TJ Clark says, sound like we should have had a lawyer on this episode to explain. Let me put it to you like this here. No lawyer wants to get in on this conversation publicly. Take that how you want. I'll leave it at that. This is why it's amongst us layers, because at the end of the day, it's all for us to understand, right? It's all for us to discuss. I wish, Nikki.
And so Sean, 2 and 3, charges 2, 3, and 4 allege that those same things happened leading up.
Just cut me off, and I've got her comment up.
Oh, I'm sorry, darling. Go ahead, because I don't see you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
My apologies, Nikki. You know I love you. The remaining charges up to charge 4 are the same. They just expand up to 2007. My apologies, Jamel.
Craig Luby says the law wouldn't say that because Bermuda politicians have been involved in multiple activities that are gray areas in comparison to other countries that have laws on abusing public office. Tamara Richardson says, I do not think anyone would want a doctor being compensated kickbacks or otherwise for referrals, prescribing, etc. Removing Dr. Braun, would you trust a doctor sending you abroad for a merit test and knowing that they received a benefit or an example prescribing meds you potentially didn't need? If so, we are just in deep trouble. I think she goes back to the overall purpose of this conversation. Again, someone mentioned gray areas. There's no gray area with Dr. Braun. People either really love him or really hate him, right? So I'm asking people throughout this conversation, as Carla is reading the charges, to remove Dr. Braun from the situation. Remove Dr. Braun. And I get people saying, speaking, and we've said, well, why did it take them so long to bring the charges? At the end of the day, I am fine with taking long to bring the charges. I am.
But I disagree with you, Mal. You can't remove Dr. Braun from this because this is the whole thing. I know that you're not being facetious, but I don't think that people can look at this objectively because it is Dr. Braun.
But that's the purpose of the conversation, trying to get people to understand the case, not the individual, right? Like it's hard to do, but that's what jurors do. Like you asked last week, can he have a fair trial? Well, how can he have a fair trial if you just stated that people can look at him objectively? Then if he can't,
I don't think he can.
Well, okay. Well, if he can't have a fair trial, then he has to walk. He has to walk because you can't put a person, regardless of how you feel about him, in a courtroom that's going to be biased against them, either, well, favorable or against. You just can't do that. So the point is, like, we have to look at the cases, the case and the charges for and against him. We have to. And so I think, that's what I'm encouraging people to do. Remove this. And I know it's hard. But if I can do it, folks, let me be clear. There was a governor named Richard Guzny, former governor of Bermuda, right? And I remember this. Remember what I'm about to tell you. You can Google it. Sir, I don't know if it's Sir Richard Guzny, but Richard Guzny was the governor back in 2010. Do you know Jamel Hartman was the last one locked up in a cell at Warwick Camp in Bermuda? Do you know why? Because Richard Guzny said that these cells are not fit for a dog. Dr. Braun was the premier, did nothing, almost ignored it, and was nonchalant. I do not care for Dr. Braun like that. I have every reason not to be objective and feel how I want to feel about the former premier. But I don't want to be that person because we deserve better. And regardless of how people feel about Dr. Braun, he deserves a fair shot. He does. And if after that fair shot, he's guilty of something, so be it.
Listen, if I was his lawyer, I would reject, and people might get me what I'm about to say, I would reject every white juror because I will never forget, ever, the big protest against him. Was it over the Riggers?
Yes.
I want to say, right? And for me as an adult, like that blew my mind. Like, wow, people like I didn't even know that many white people like this in Bermuda. They came out in droves that day. And so for me, I don't see him getting a fair trial. And based even on like some of the Twitter comments, and these are people that were younger that I saw anyway, right? Younger than me even. Kenny. And I'm going to go a little not personal, but I'm going to say this, right? Because I know you feel he should face the charges. It's only one reason why I feel Dr. Braun should face the charges. And that's so that, and you said this last week, so that whether he's guilty or not, it goes away. So it's not something that it's going to be 15 years old and 17 years old, etc. But if they have this many resources, because I read somewhere that a few years ago, up to $7 million of the government's money had been spent on pursuing this against Dr. Braun, the bust of Dr. Reddy's house and office and all that stuff, then why can't other court systems in the Bermuda court system have that same, zeal, have that same tenacity, i.e. the family courts? Put some money over there and go and fight all them deadbeats, parents, not just deadies, but parents who aren't doing, but you're going to spend 10 years, 11 years hunting after Dr. Braun?
Well, you know, I used to say to Dr. Brown's supporters when they would say they're spending millions to go after Dr. Brown, never forget, under Dr. Brown, the same Dr. Brown premier, they paid for a Queen's Counsel, a QC, the most expensive lawyer in the land, to fight against 14 black men against a colonial system. So I get you. I get you. I get you. And this is why, again, people are either for or against. Carla, let's go through the other charges real quickly so people understand.
Sure. So I'll pick up on number 6. On or about July 2nd, 2007, being the holder of public office as Premier of Bermuda, corruptly obtained a benefit, namely a donation of $12,500 from Eddie Benoit to the benefit of the Bermuda Health Foundation on account of the promotion of interests of Ambling International Consulting. Number 7. On or about March 4th, 2008, being the holder of public office, Premier, corruptly obtained a benefit, namely a donation of $75,000 from Global Hue to the benefit of the PLP on account of the promotion of interests of Global Hue. So that's the same as charge 5. Number 8, on or about March 6, 2008, being the holder of public office as Premier, corruptly obtained a benefit, namely a donation of $16,000 from Rock Newman Promotions LLC to the benefit of the PLP or the Bermuda Health Foundation on account of the promotion of interest of Rock Newman Promotions. So I'm hearing this marketing theme, because isn't Eddie Benoit also promotional something? If my memory serves me correctly.
I think it's consultant real estate advisory firm or something.
Okay. And then number 9, on or about March 10th, 2008, as Premier, publicly obtained a benefit, namely a donation of $75,000 from Kerwin Communications Limited to the benefit of the PLP on account of the promotion of the interests of James Kerwin and or Rock Media. So we're in Rock Media again. Number 10, on or about March 12, 2008, Premier corruptly obtained a benefit, namely a donation of $25,000 from Curon Bermuda Limited to the benefit of the PLP on account of a promotion of the interests of Curon Bermuda Limited. And then number 11, between July 1st, 2008 and July 31st, 2008, while the holder of public office as a government minister, corruptly asked and agreed to receive a benefit, namely fees to be paid in monthly installments for himself and Bermuda Healthcare Services Limited on account of services provided or to be provided by him to Leahy Clinic Inc. and Leahy Clinic Hospital for the years 2008, 9, and 10. Number 12, on or about July 4th, 2008, being the office Premier, corruptly obtained a benefit, namely a donation of $72,000 from Curran Bermuda Limited to the benefit of the PLP on account of promotion for the interests of Curran Bermuda. And lastly, on or about August 25th, 2010, being the holder of public office as Premier, corruptly obtained a benefit, namely a donation of $25,000 from Oxford Communications Limited to the benefit of PLP on account of the promotion of interests of James Curran and or Oxford Communications Limited.
Wow.
Oh, so you know what? I did real quick for anyone that doesn't understand. So Leahy, of course, is the hospital. Global Hue is an American advertising agency, which is now defunct. Ambling is an Atlanta-based real estate advisory firm founded by Mr. Bernard. Jamel, you are correct. Rock Newman is a concert promoter and local TV and radio host in DC. And Kerwin Communications is an advertising firm out of New Jersey and is also run by the same man who founded Oxford Communications. And then Curran is a healthcare management consultancy and contracting firm with offices in the States and in Bermuda. Just to give some context.
I want to get from the audience, What are your thoughts on the charges against Dr. Brown? Let's get some feedback from you. When I answer this, Sheldon Eugene Fox, let me just say this to you in your comment. For those listening who can't see his comment, he said the governor of Bermuda are not in charge of the operations of police in the Royal Bermuda Regiment. These convenient-like comments really piss me off because the premier and the government, those are convenient comments. They can do everything like change legislation, policies, and guess what else they control? Budgets. So they can do everything to control these operations. Don't fall for the hype, big bruh. Everything. I'm not a smart guy, but I'm not dumb enough to continue listening to BS stuff like that. Tamara Richardson, Carla.
Well, considering we now have an insurance company that owns a private practice, it feels like we are actually going backwards. But what do we lay people know? Medical professionals all have a code of ethics and regulations. Kickbacks are never okay. I read it in your voice, Tammy.
Barbara Teddick says referral arrangements are commonplace and acceptable in most business types. If I'm a Goodyear tire dealer with an exclusive agreement to get paid for every single tire sold throughout the Caribbean, that's good business. Some non-EU might say, but to be a doctor to be paid a referral for every single lay referral out of Bermuda, regardless of local doctor, that's something different. The law will decide the degree. Thank you so much for that. Craig Luby says, Dr. Brown, perhaps Dr. Brown is catching a case of karma. Do you recall the situation with Miss Junis, how fair she was treated? Well, there's a lot of situations like that. And I did have someone reach out and say, I cannot sympathize with Dr. Brown for the amount of Black people that have suffered from him. Again, I'm trying to take Dr. Brown out of it. I know it's hard to do, Carl. I know, based on the responses with people, I know it's hard to remove the individual. I get it. I get it. But at the end of the day, folks, we all should, the whole purpose of going to court and having a jury trial is to be judged by our peers. We deserve that at least, no? I mean, some people would say no, but you get me. Nikki Michelle says the marketing charges sound like pay to play. Talent TJ Clark, so they paid a benefit to the party before or after they got contracts. Amanda.
A stark example of how treatment is different for the races. I truly feel if he were Caucasian, it wouldn't happen. I also feel the reason drugs continue to plague is because who is doing it? I will admit I am biased. Thanks for that. How about government help folk who have lost their homes to banks with their discriminatory practices?
There's a lot of causes and fights, folks. Tamara Richardson, one thing is for sure, you can hike up the minimum wage up to $30 per hour. But if we don't curb public official spending from the public purse without consequence, the cost of living will simply rise to swallow any perceived benefit to the lowest paid with increases. Rick Olson says Rock Newman's first concert and maybe only was Beyonce in Bermuda. He was also a campaign strategist. This I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to accept responsibility for that. If you can send fact checks, that would be great, Mr. Olson. Dr. Seaman says, waiting to see, just on a conclusion, whatever way. I think so. But in fairness, Dr. Seaman, even if the courts rule, I'm not quite sure people are going to, let's say Dr. Brown walks and they never make it to court. It's always going to be hanging over him where people are going to say he's guilty, no?
Well, he can't win. He really can't win, whichever way you look at it. And I'll give a totally different example of Justice Smith. He just could never win when people have a perception of what they want to believe. So if Dr. Brown gets off, then people would say, oh, he must have bribed their way out of that. Or people would say, and then if he's guilty, people's going to say, oh, it's unfair because they've always not liked him. So damned if you do and damned if you don't. Craig, but I'm interested to see the trial.
Why are the charges not more expensive? Strange occurrences have taken place during the Brown administration. Port Royal, the docks, the ferries. Rikai Emery says, how does he get an impartial jury in Bermuda? And I think that's the purpose of this conversation. That's the purpose of us having this conversation today. It's about impartiality. It's about removing the individual, looking at the 13 charges against the individual. Does this individual's guilt depend on who they are or whether or not they did something wrong? That's it. That's it. That's all I'm trying to get through to people. We can feel how we want to feel about the individual.
A quick little elephant in my room. I know we got time, but I just find it bizarre. Maybe it's just timing, but how Miss Clark was put into that position, and then less than a week into the job, she presents this, like, just one of the things that make you go,
Oh yeah, he made his comments about that. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back with the daily play. You all want to get in on this daily play today, and then Carla's going to give some inspiration. Then we'll let you go off for the day. How's that song, Carla? Unless you want to stick around, we'll be back.
Bermuda, do you know the difference between internet and Wi-Fi? Don't worry, neither did I. Let me break it down to you. Internet is delivered to your modem, which then has to push the Wi-Fi signal into the rest of your home. Do you find that the further you're away from your modem, the weaker your Wi-Fi signal gets? That's because Bermuda's homes are built hurricane tough. It's really difficult for that Wi-Fi signal to reach every room. But you're in luck. Our One Home Wi-Fi solution guarantees Wi-Fi coverage in and around your home with the help of our Eero devices. Plug in the Eero around your home and it will create a mesh Wi-Fi network in every room. Check us out at One today to sign up and make sure you can stream, work, and play from every corner of your home.
All right, folks, welcome back to the big show. Carla Zul here. There, and I'm Jamel Hartman. And interesting conversation. I just want to say Nicole Hollis makes a great statement. And I've said in court cases, obviously. And she says tainted press stories help with one's ability to see past the truth, the real truth. How many persons actually come out of their homes and sit in courtrooms and listen to real facts? The truth is what she's saying is that most of what you read or hear on the news from court cases is not everything that's said. I remember being in court, and I was always surprised how certain things were left out on all mediums, right? But I trust that Carla, when she said in that court case, she shared everything to you all. It's only certain space, but it is interesting what some people do share. It's very interesting to me. Carla, it's daily play time. Kevin Bean says 2 of the charges speak to receiving money for either the PLP or his medical practice. How can he be charged with a crime which hasn't been completely investigated? And Erica Rance-Mills says, I've always said we should not have a jury of our peers on this island. We should have a revolving panel from somewhere else. The island is just too small for high-profile cases of any sort of impartiality. But this is my point of this morning. This is my overall point of this morning, folks. All right, daily play time. Carla needs your help. Very easy question. What is the southernmost island in the Caribbean?
Cuba, I think.
That's the most northern.
Oh, I don't know. Dominican Republic. I don't. I failed, Mr. Chandler. I'm sorry. I just did detentions in your class. I clearly didn't pay attention.
Carla,
I don't know.
Carla, listen to me carefully as I read.
Bahamas, because it's close to Florida.
No, Bahamas is even more northern. I mean, Gary Marina is going to whoop you. Gary, I literally was like, let me do the question in honor of our mate, Gary Marina. Trinidad and Tobago is the southernmost island country in the Caribbean. You literally chose the 2 most northern. Bahamas is the furthest north, not necessarily in the Caribbean, and Cuba.
Well, I stuck with my tram, but you know why? I was thinking Florida and looking Dawn, so my bad. But hey, I can take a loss.
What she showed us today, folks, is that she does not know north from south. That's clear.
I don't know the Caribbean. My mom is from Nevis. Oh my Lord. Hope she's not watching. I'm off.
My goodness. No, Kevin says Aruba. I actually thought it was Aruba. No, it's not Aruba. It's Trinidad. I thought Aruba too, because I remembered Aruba is one of those places that's so low that it really doesn't get impacted by hurricanes. But it was Trinidad and Tobago, right? Look, they're giving it to you. Ace Girl said Cuba and Bahamas, like the 2 most northern places. You feel me, folks?
I'm in England. You won't need to treat me to a vacation, and then I'll know where Sophie is.
Usually at this time of the show, I say to people, give us some inspiration. But Carla, give yourself some inspiration, please. Give yourself some inspiration.
Ow! I can laugh at myself.
Oh, yeah, we can.
We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. Maya Angelou.
Any final words on today's episode, Carla?
I loved having this conversation. It's an important conversation to have, and I'm very intrigued to see what justice prevails with.
Yeah, I just want to tell people, honestly, man, we have to remove our biases. You know how I feel about certain people, certain institutions, but I have a responsibility with this platform, especially speaking publicly every day, to remove myself from situations and be objective. That doesn't mean my feelings change towards individuals. It just means that if I were in that situation, I would want a fair trial. When you're outspoken, and I'm not even talking about Dr. Brown, but I'll use myself. I'm outspoken. I challenge things. There are people that want to bring you down. Is that the case with him? I'm not saying it is, but people will aim to bring you down. You know, I speak out on this show against the government, the same government who says back in the day that others used to try to silence them by taking their mortgages. Some of their family members have tried to do that to me and this show. I get it. Yeah. So, you know, we have to remove ourselves from situations, be objective and look at it. And as far as a jury, I don't believe Bermuda can find an impartial jury on the case of Dr. Brown. That said, thanks again to our partners, Medical House One Communications and Linda's, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you daily. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. She's Carla.
Thank you,
Jamel Hartman. My friends, make it a good day.